Sometimes when you travel, you get lucky. It was my first time ever in Madrid, and I already had what I thought was a pretty solid plan for my days. You know how it goes: the major museums, the must-see sites, the things you feel you have to tick off on your first visit. But the best thing about traveling is this: plans can change, and sometimes they should. One evening I happened to walk past a certain building. At first glance, it looked like a fairly typical late 19th century house. But something caught my eye: a gated garden with beautifully lit statues inside. On the wall, there was a small but useful clue: Museo Serralbo. I came back the very next day, because this was no ordinary house. It was a palace, and inside it revealed an incredible museum. The entrance fee just €3. No queue either, and later I learned that this place still flies under the radar for most tourists. Museo Serralbo tells the story of the Marquis of Serralbo, and it's worth pointing out we are talking about the 17th Marquis here, since the title is passed down in the family. Enrique de Aguilera y Gamboa lived from 1845 to 1922. Over the course of his life, he was many things, but what he left behind is the extraordinary home filled with art and antiques. This house museum is one of the best ways to step into Madrid's past. Of course, a collection like this didn't come out of nowhere. The Marquis inherited significant wealth and noble titles at a young age. Later, his status elevated him to the very top of Spanish aristocracy, securing a life of privilege. Through marriage and investments, he multiplied his fortune even further. So yes, the means to build a grand residence and pursue collecting were certainly there. The story of the house begins in 1893, when the Marquis built it for his family. From the very beginning, it was meant to be both a home and an art gallery. And quite early on, there seems to have been a clear idea. After his time, the building and its collection would become a museum, managed by a foundation and the Spanish state, open to all who pass by. As you walk through the rooms at your own pace, his life slowly begins to unfold around you. It's easiest to imagine the social life. Dinner conversations with political figures in the dining room. Evenings spent in the billiard room surrounded by friends. The women, of course, observing from elegant sofas or retreating to their own sitting room. Guests arriving through the grand entrance hall and the armory. In the summer, the garden offered shade and relief from the heat. And this time I got to see those same statues, the ones I had spotted the night before, up close. You reach the garden through the mezzanine level, which was reserved for everyday family life, with bedrooms and private spaces. The Marquis was also a traveler. He acquired objects from auctions and art dealers across Europe, and even from cultures he never personally visited. The full collection includes around 50,000 items, some as small as coins. There was so much, in fact, that part of it were donated to other museums in Madrid. Inside the museum you are free to wander, but I would recommend downloading the floor plan to your phone. It explains the purpose of each room and highlights key objects. There are very few signs or labels here, because the goal has been to preserve an authentic atmosphere. The downside is, among thousands of objects, it can be difficult to spot the most significant ones. The floor plan helps bring them into focus. Stylistically, the house blends neo-baroque and rococo. It's an example of eclecticism, mixing different influences to achieve the richest possible result. Unfortunately, part of the museum was closed during my visit, so I missed the library. But I guess that just gives me a reason to come back. During my visit, I also found myself thinking about the Marquis's political views. He was a Carlist, part of a conservative movement emphasizing patriotism, Catholicism, and monarchy. And maybe that passion for royalty is reflected in the interiors. The ballroom, in particular, feels almost regal, filled with gold details and mirrors. Later, I learned that the Marquis himself is immortalized in one of the ceiling paintings. Another key piece of the puzzle is his work as an archaeologist. He made significant discoveries and helped modernize excavation methods. He also promoted legislation to prevent artifacts from being taken out of the country, ensuring that Spain's treasures would remain in Spain. I'll admit, though, I did wonder at times, was the Marquis a hoarder of his era? Some critics argue that this vast and somewhat eclectic collection was simply a way to display wealth. But on the other hand, it makes more sense when you realize that he was already shaping this house into a museum during his lifetime. His goal was to leave behind something meaningful. A collection as rich and expansive as possible for future generations. Either way, Museo Serralbo is a fascinating window to the lifestyle of Spain's wealthiest in the early 20th century. And in this case, it feels more than just showing off. The Marquis seems to have wanted his life and his fortune to mean something beyond his own time. Thanks for watching until the end. Here's something else you might enjoy.